Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Unfiltered. I'm Riley Russell. I'm a real estate agent based out of Roanoke, Virginia. And tonight's guest, we get to have a fellow agent on the podcast with us. She is based in the DMV area with the Davenport Group. So, Andy Hewitt, how are you? How was Monday so far?
Hi. A Monday. It was not a bad Monday, actually. It was very productive. Yes, thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here all the way from the DC, Maryland, Virginia area.
Yep. Now, what part are you actually based out of? Are you in Nova? Are you across the bridge in Maryland?
I am in Nova. I'm actually in Alexandria, Virginia, in a little neighborhood next to Old Town called Delray.
Oh,
And I'm a
nice.
huge fan of my neighborhood.
Awesome. So how long are you from Northern Virginia, or are you kind of like a transplant?
I'm not. We are largely transplant area. I'm
Hmm.
actually from Atlanta, Georgia. I moved up
Oh.
here in July 2020, the middle of the pandemic. I don't know what we were thinking. My husband Roy and I moved up here. We lived in Arlington briefly. We lived in Annapolis, Maryland briefly, where my
Cool.
husband's from, and now we've settled in Alexandria.
Awesome. Awesome. I feel like it kind of comes with the territory of being a real estate agent that you just move a decent amount. You got to check out all the spots.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, and when we first moved here, of course, we didn't know exactly which neighborhood we wanted to be in, so I'm glad we
mhm.
allowed ourselves the time to explore before choosing where we wanted to invest.
Definitely. Well, there's a lot of spots in Nova that like they're similar, but they're also really different at the same time.
Yes.
Just a different vibe in
Yes.
different cities. So
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
there's a
get
little
that.
something for everybody.
So I did kind of want to just like jump right into it. Alexis Brandel,
Yeah.
introduced us. Super happy that she did. But you actually work at the same brokerage as she does at the Davenport Group. How did you fall into real estate? Because I feel like usually people don't go to school and are like, I'm going to be a real estate agent. Um, how did
Yeah.
you fall into it?
My Elwoods, I think I'll go to law
Yeah.
school today. That's
What? Like
a
it's hard?
great Howard? Exactly. Well, gosh, joke's on us, right? Because that real estate test is no joke.
Mm-mm.
I studied like it was any test I was taking throughout school. I made flashcards. I was all in.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll back up. So my past life slash career was in marketing. So I
Oh,
worked for about 5
perfect.
years at a marketing communications agency in Atlanta and got great experience doing digital marketing, branding, and business development for the agency
Awesome.
itself. So I was marketing services, which is kind of meta and very cool. I enjoyed it. I went in house for a while and worked
Mhm.
for actually North Point Ministries.
Hmm.
And when the pandemic hit, my husband had actually gotten a new job and a promotion up at headquarters in DC. He works for the Fish and Wildlife Service. So we decided we'd move up here. And I took the opportunity to, of course, explore marketing roles in what would be our new hometown. But I'd
Mhm.
also been, I guess, having conversations with friends in my sphere, and they just told me that the skills would translate. They thought it would be something I could be
Totally.
successful at, given my background, personality type in general. And I took the time being out of the office
Mhm.
to go all in and study real estate. And so I was able to find an amazing brokerage. It's where Arla Real Estate, RLAH, Real Living
Mhm.
at Home, located. We have offices across the DMV. My team, the Davenport Group, was so impressive from our first conversation. I'm so thankful I was able to join and have seen a lot of success with them.
That is a wild just like a wild transition to get into that. That is I have a lot of questions, so I'm gonna try to, like, actually remember all of them, 1, which is always
Yeah,
the hard part,
I'm here
and
for
2 but one, that's awesome though that you kind of stayed on the East Coast because I'm guessing you probably still have family down in Georgia
I
or not
do.
so much.
I have
So,
family all over though. We're a big family. Families are big down there.
yep, yep. But so that's awesome. Kudos to your husband for getting that promotion. But whenever you came up here and you decided that you were all in with real estate, how did you immediately make that jump from working full time with marketing and then just you were like, I love you guys, but I got to do this? Did you immediately cut ties? Or did you kind of do real estate, not really on the side, because we both know it's not really a part-time job if you want to actually
Exactly.
be immersed in it.
Yeah.
How did that transition go?
So I never want to half do anything, right? So there was a period where I put in notice and really wanted to grow roots in my new
Mhm,
city. And that was a time when, I was still exploring roles in
mhm,
marketing, though I wasn't super enthusiastic about what I was reading. I think I recognized the need for a challenge in myself. So I did do a bit of freelance marketing in the interim for the company I was at in Atlanta. But ultimately doing that while also studying, and I wanted to be efficient with it, you wanna get that
mhm.
test over with and you just wanna get started,
Exactly.
because it's common knowledge
Mhm.
among agents that what you're studying and what you're being tested on is not exactly real world, applicable.
Nope.
Um, you don't use a ton of it, fair
Mm-mm.
housing, of course, but yeah, you're not the one doing the math, all the math that we were studying. So I just, I,
Exactly.
I truly wanted to go all in. So yes, did a little freelancing, but once I started studying, I think I gave myself maybe a month or two to get my license to affiliate with a brokerage and then get started.
Holy cow. Well, hats off to you because I'm basically doing two full-time jobs plus mom. And I'm
Yeah.
because I'm just like at that point where because I've only been in it since October 21 and you've been in it, literally 1 year longer than I have.
Sure.
But I'm just like, I don't have my network built up
Hmm.
to where I feel comfortable, not doing the recruiting job also. Um, but
I
honestly, like how you said about the marketing role, I mean, that completely correlates with real estate. And especially in today's day and age with like all the social media marketing and print
absolutely.
marketing, digital, all of that. I mean, I feel like you kind
Mhm.
of have a leg up on all of us because you have you have real world experience on that.
Oh, well, again, there's so many I feel like I'm gonna say jokes on me a lot because it's true. I was like, "Oh, these job descriptions and marketing, I want a new challenge," all of that. When the truth is, I became the brand as a
Hmm.
realtor. Um, I use those marketing skills every day, and apply them to a social media strategy. I use
Hmm.
an eye for branding, when it comes to marketing a home, even to paid media, video, photography, all of it applies.
Hmm.
And so, especially if you're doing it right. So you can go in and kind of put one toe in and see who you attract and, maybe get some deals through word of mouth, but you need to run it like a business and a business should be marketed. Right.
Yeah.
So a healthy
Yep.
marketing budget is still that 10%, of your annual earnings, and you do need the strategy behind it and to take the time to put out quality content. So it
Mhm.
certainly applies. I do have thoughts on making that transition and growing your sphere. That was a huge decision maker for me in joining a team
Mhm.
versus immediately
A
diving in as a
solo.
solo
Yeah.
agent. Um, because if I was going to sustain, if I was going to contribute, I should say, to my family, um, then I needed to make that income. I've always been very
Yeah.
independent. That was important to me financially. And so I knew I needed a foundation, with a team that had a really solid lead source or lead
Mhm.
stream. I wanted to affiliate with a team that could educate me and invest in me, and
Yeah.
teach me to do the job really well, while also, allowing me, more opportunities to do actual real estate in the field, and be given some leads.
No, I completely understand that, and I didn't go the team route, which sometimes I wish I did, and sometimes I'm glad I didn't.
It's a hard
But
decision.
yeah, and because it's like obviously with the team, a portion of your commission is going towards that. And I mean, there's pros and cons to teams, and there's pros and cons to solo, agents too.
Absolutely.
But the nice thing with team is like, yes, you might have to pay, a piece of your commission, but hopefully you're getting some leads. Hopefully you're getting some marketing help. You also get the knowledge of more senior agents that you can be like, I'm not sure. Can you explain this to me? And really shadow them and learn from them. And just like it definitely helps. Um, I feel like
Certainly.
how you were saying that you're a very like independent person and you have to be, working and contributing. I feel like being an agent, that's like the perfect mindset to be an agent. Like
Oh,
determined,
yeah.
wanting to be independent, be creative, do your own thing. Um, I mean, you have to if you want to succeed in this business because for the most part, it's not just going to find you. Like you do have to like
Oh, yeah.
grind a little bit. It's weird being like, "Hey, do you have any referrals?" But if you want business, you kind of have to do that. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. You have to have
mhm.
uncomfortable conversations. You have to put yourself out there. It feels very weird.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and I agree there are a ton of pros and cons, and I think no matter which path an agent chooses, only good things can come. I think for
Mhm.
me personally, being new to the area, of course, I didn't have a sphere in my new city, that it just made sense.
Mhm.
Kind of go that route, but at the same time, even if you don't join a team, so there are individual agents and teams within any brokerage.
Mhm.
So even being part of a brokerage, you have mentors built in. You have other successful agents that you can associate with and go grab coffee with and call and
Yep.
ask those questions. It is tough breaking into it because, and you probably feel this way, you were an expert in your field. People asked you questions, you had the
Yep.
answers, maybe
Yep.
you were a leader of a team and you dive into a new career where you have to learn a new language. You don't know
Yep.
the answer right off the top of your head, and you have to ask and, have your hand held for a little bit. But
Mhm.
you can have those resources no matter what team or dynamic you dive into it as.
No, I completely agree. Like no matter what with any brokerage, like that should be your principal broker. Like mine,
Mhm.
he probably looks at I joke about this all the time, but he probably looks at his phone like, "Oh gosh, what does she want now?" Um, but
Me again.
yeah, "Hi,
Yeah,
I have a question. I just want to make sure because I'm very much like I never want to give someone the wrong information.
of
Um,
course.
and if I'm calling him 99% of the time, I've already exhausted everything that I can find. And I
Mhm.
just want to confirm that the information that I'm being given or I've given or I'm going to give is correct. I mean, we're
Right.
literally helping someone buy or sell their biggest purchase probably ever. So like
Exactly.
there's just a little bit of pressure with that, just a little bit.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility, and I
Mhm.
joke, about the level of work. As much as I love selling Sunset, you have
Yeah.
to grind. It's a huge hustle, in order to
Mhm.
build up that business. The average agent, I believe, sells 2 homes a year or something like
Wow.
that, and, that doesn't necessarily equate to a salary position that you
No.
might have, and so that's not people don't picture that grind. They kind of picture walking into a home. You don't imagine where the clients came from. You just have them.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Um,
Well, and a lot of people too, like they think, oh, you just get a massive commission check. And well, like some are pretty nice size, but also what's coming out of that is like all the dues that we pay, all like the
mhm.
marketing stuff that we pay for, photography, gas to get there, like, open house, marketing and food. And, there's a lot that does come out of that. And also we have to save for taxes. Like,
Right. Oh, the
there's just a
taxes.
lot. um,
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
that big number that you might get, it's usually at least cut in half after you
Mhm.
take everything out. Um,
Mhm.
which still, I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm still okay with it, but they're like
Right.
that's not the first thing that people think of whenever they're thinking of the commission that they're paying you. They think it's just one chunk, and you get all of that.
Right,
Um,
right, and it's true when you're sitting at the closing table, they have
mhm,
that line item on there, and you're like, "I
mhm.
just I wanna be clear." A lot of
Yep,
this is invested. It's invested in the brokerage, it's invested in my team and
in
what they,
yourself. Yeah,
and in myself, right? The taxes, though, that's
yeah.
if I could give I have a ton of advice to give new agents, but, yeah, the saving is probably
Mhm.
close to the top.
Yep. I would much rather, and I did this last year. I was like, I'm just going to save half of everything because you just also, I'm, I'm not the numbers girl. My husband is. Um, and I'm just like, it's going to be easier if I save half now and then I can, I don't actually need all that for taxes. Whereas
Mhm.
instead, it's like, oh, wait a minute, you need double that.
Right.
Because you just don't, especially the first year, you don't know exactly like how that's all going to go and get calculated out and all that
Mhm.
fun stuff. Um,
Yeah, and some of the best advice I got, the first few years, you're getting your feet wet, that is hustle time, and it's also saving time. Um,
mhm.
we just came out of a historic real estate market, and we're still in it. I don't wanna say we came out of it, I take that back, but, when rates were in the 2s and 3s,
It's not
during
normal.
our pandemic era, yeah, I mean, what a crash course in real
Mm.
estate to join.
I was gonna
Um,
ask you, how did that go? Because it's like you literally, I feel like, had to run your clients through and then basically
Mhm.
give an offer on your way out and like your firstborn child. Or if you
Yes,
were selling,
exactly.
or if you were selling, it's like, all right, here's your pick of the litter. Which
Mhm,
one do you want?
mhm.
um, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, it's been an adventure, and I'm very grateful that this was the season I was able to kinda learn and hone my craft and learn how to educate clients because that's a huge part of it. Even if a client has bought a home before, they probably
Mhm.
haven't bought a home in the market that we were in. And in the DMV specifically, I mean, we just saw such high demand. There's always high demand and there's generally lower inventory in this
Mhm.
market because we can't grow, there's not a ton of new construction in our
Nope.
area. It's
You
pretty
have to
much
grow
built
out
out.
or up.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
out or up. At DC, you can't build up, so
Mm,
inventory is just generally limited. And we see high demand because of a lot of government jobs, my husband
mhm.
included, a lot of military moving in
Mhm.
and out. There's a constant churn. And then we have corporations like Amazon, Google, Boeing, moving headquarters here. And so with that level of demand, it is a challenging, area to be buying, but it's also an
Mhm.
incredible area to be investing because those
Yeah.
homes
You're
continue to
always gonna have
appreciate.
appreciation. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So we just have to get on the phone in that initial conversation and educate from the very beginning and just set the tone and say, hey, this is what the market's doing. And it
Mhm.
doesn't scare me. And I'm going to educate you to the point where you feel confident, in your decision making and having to pull that trigger pretty quickly.
Yeah.
but I'm going to be walking you through it every step of the way so you feel confident in this big purchase you're making. It's going to be emotional,
Mhm.
but let me carry a lot of that for you. And yeah, I think it's a lot of education because these clients are coming from potentially other areas where you're not seeing 10, 15, 20 offers on one home. How do you stand out? And a
Yeah.
lot of it's the agent. It's not necessarily the price point.
I feel like it's the connections that you have too, definitely help, for sure. Like, knowing, like, if you've worked with that agent before and it went, as
Mhm.
smoothly as it could go, and, you didn't cause a headache, they didn't cause you a headache, like, you have that rapport built out already. Um, but the thing
Yeah.
that I've noticed with, like, a lot of people are asking right now, at least to me, like, "Is it still a crazy market? Are you still busy? Like, it's cooled down, right?" And I'm like, "Well, yes and no." It kinda, at least down here in Roanoke, it really depends, and what I'm telling everyone that I keep feeling like I see is there's such a high demand for the desirable locations, and in
Mhm.
those locations, it's a low inventory. So, like,
Mhm.
there's options on the market that are coming new on the market and coming soon and stuff, but the ones in the desirable locations with, like, schools or with downtown or whatever it may be, like, those are gonna go super quick, and not just
Right.
for single family, like, folks looking to start a family or, like, a couple or whatever. It's also for investors because they know, they can rent that out. There's going to be the
Right.
demand for it too. Um, so
Yeah.
it's trying to explain that to some of my clients. Like, yes, it's cooled off slightly, but it's still a seller's market. Um,
Yes.
like, so it's sometimes, I don't know if you feel like you've had to deal with this a little bit, but sometimes buyers kind of have to miss out on one or two to kind of
Mm.
realize, like, I promise I'm not kidding. Like,
Right.
I'm
The
not saying to overpay, I'm not saying to, give up contingencies or anything, but it's not a market, at least down here, where you can get a steal.
Right.
Um,
There's homes don't go on sale like they do in a
no,
store, right?
no.
Um, and we've seen the same thing up here in the
Mm,
DMV area. Our market is incredibly seasonal, though we
mm,
haven't left a seller's market truly. In my experience, the spring is always the busiest season. I don't know what it is. New Year's resolutions, buyers are like, this is the year I'm going to buy. We see a ton of demand in the spring. And by spring, I mean January to April, May. It
mhm.
slows down a little bit in the summer. Buyers are distracted going on summer vacation.
Vacation, yeah.
Yeah, hunkered in out of the cold on Zillow or Redfin like they have been all winter. So we see a little less competition, but we see more inventory in the summer because it's a convenient time to sell,
Mhm,
between school years and things. It picks back up in the fall. We do see more demand. I have a pipeline of clients right now that are, we've met, we've chatted. I'm sharing properties periodically, but their plan is to buy in the fall.
mhm.
And it slows down significantly in November and December with the holidays. And so I always say, if you find a home you love around the holiday time, November, December, buy then, because
Mhm.
you will not know what hit you come spring.
Yep,
But
yep.
you're right. And yes, I do think it takes some experience for some clients and potentially losing one to understand,
Mhm.
how quickly a home can go or what it takes to win. And I think the fear is overpaying,
Yep.
but it hasn't happened. I mean, it just hasn't happened. A home is worth what somebody is willing to pay. And if
Mhm,
there are 5 to 10 offers up in that price range, then that's, arguably what the home is worth. And we
mhm.
haven't seen over the past 2 to 3 years low appraisals. I think
No.
appraisers are on top and understand the market as we do. So,
That is kinda like, going back to one of the first ones, well, probably like the 4th one I did. Um, it was kind of funny because it was, how words are hard today. How am I trying to word this?
they're
But
always hard
basic
at this time of day.
yeah. But basically, like, we had put in an offer on a house, and we got under contract and everything. And it was, I think it was for 245 down here,
Mhm.
over in Salem. And the appraisal came back, and we had done like trying to be creative, but make sure that it kind of protected my buyer as well,
Sure.
in the sense of like, okay, she'll cover up to this cost if it, doesn't appraise for purchase price.
Right, kind of a
But I mean,
shortfall cushion.
yeah, anything more than that, then we have the right to renegotiate or get out and get the EMD back. And it literally was like $500 less than the
Oh,
purchase price.
man.
And I'm like, are you really, you really can't just do $500 more? Or,
Right.
I mean, I'm glad that she only had to pay $500 out of pocket for that,
Mhm.
because that's not always the case. But it was just kind of a um,
Interesting.
weird number that I didn't expect. But
Yeah.
that one will kind of stick with me. Like, that was odd, but okay. Um,
Yep, I have experience in that where, I like I said, appraisers are up in the DMV area sort of in tune with the market and what's happening.
mhm,
And, the listing agent and the buyer's agent often end up working as a team,
mhm,
to send comps proactively,
mhm,
and also explain, this is how many offers we got, and try and do our due diligence there. I have
mhm.
had, I'm not an appraiser. I truly can't speak to exactly what that process looks like, but I have had an appraiser call me and say, "Oh my, like, help me here. I'm
Mm.
not seeing how we can get to this price point." And I have had the opportunity to send comps and protect my clients as best I can, or their pockets rather.
That's nice that they actually, like, asked you about that, though, because I feel like, and I think, um, the broke agent media and, like, Over Ask, I don't know if you listen to any of, like,
Mhm.
those
I
podcasts or
do.
whatnot, but,
Yeah.
and, like, Byron Lazine and all that, and, like, they just had, like, a big discussion about, like, appraisers and all that stuff. I mean, they have the same access to the same comps that we do. And I feel like if you are the listing agent, for the most part, like, if you're pricing out a house, you ran the comps. Like, you should know and be pretty
Right.
confident in what you listed it for. I think the
Mhm.
issue that we run into right now is that since the demand is low, or sorry, since the supply is low and the demand is high, people are willing to pay significantly more. And then that's
Right.
where, like, that issue is with the price discrepancy.
Mhm.
Um,
That's the
but
distinction. It's a very
yeah.
clear distinction. In
Hmm.
that scenario I described, my clients were well aware, and as agents, it's our job to, prior to submitting an offer, when we're discussing a price or an offer price that our clients are comfortable with, I share comps and I let them
Hmm.
know what I believe in my professional experience based on past 6 months of sales, and
Hmm.
um, details of the home, acreage, square footage, number of bedrooms and bathrooms. They're surprised to hear that actually finishes aren't weighed as heavily as,
Yeah.
buyers and sellers weigh
That you
them
would
in their
think. Yep.
um, they knew those specific clients were aware of what I believed it would appraise at, and they made the conscious choice of, we know in order to win, this is what we want to offer,
Hmm.
and we had to be comfortable with it. But
Yep.
every client's going to be different, and it's
Hmm.
our job to just lay out the facts and paint the clearest picture and give our professional opinion. At the end of the day, it's not our name on the contract, but we have to be good stewards.
Exactly. Well, we're just the advisors, the middleman, like, like, we're giving like you said, our professional opinion and laying out all the facts and information. And then it's up to them to decide if they want to kind of go the route that we're suggesting, or if they want to kind of tweak it a little bit, whatever they feel comfortable with. I mean, it, it, it's tricky because, like you said, everyone is so different. Every house is so different. Each situation is
Mhm.
so different. That's kind of like the fun part about this, though, is like you're never bored. Like, by any
Right.
means, you are never bored.
Right.
um,
Every transaction brings its own challenges and
mhm,
opportunities. not every showing leads to a transaction. But yes, I do aim to educate as best I can.
Yep.
Some clients are willing to dive in and go ahead and make an offer after seeing one home. Maybe they've
Mhm.
been looking at Zillow and Redfin for 2 years and know exactly what they're looking for. Other
Mhm.
clients may need more time, may need to see 10, 15 homes in order to feel comfortable, like they've seen enough in order to go for it. But, it's
Mhm.
our job to talk them through that, where if that first house checks all the boxes and they're nervous purely because it's the first one, say,
Yep.
okay, let's talk about how many of your boxes this checks, or
And,
how
like,
do
would
you,
you be okay missing out on it?
yes,
Like, if you don't? Yeah, no, I
will
think that
you
there's always kind of that what if something better comes on? And it's
mm,
like, that's true, but also, what if something better doesn't come on?
and what
Then
does better mean to you?
yeah,
What are we
yeah,
looking for?
like, yep. I always tell folks, I'm like, if you are comfortable with the price and, you're okay with the size and everything, and it has the location that you want, do it because you can change almost everything else. You can never change location. Like that's the one thing that you can't change. And I don't know, that's personally to me like the the biggest thing, at least personally, whenever I go into buying something too. I'm
Mhm.
like,
Let's
okay,
break
if
it
it's
down.
mm,
What I ask this to every new client in that initial conversation. I ask the question of, if you have to pick one priority between these three things, what would it be? Would it be location? I
mhm,
have to be within 15-minute commute of my job. I have to have a grocery store walkable.
mhm,
I have restaurants and shops walkable. I need to be near a metro, anything pertaining
mhm,
to location. Or would it be monthly payment? And I say,
mhm,
well, we're of course going to stick within your budget, but some
yeah,
clients say, I don't care where it is, I don't care what it looks like, it just has to cost this much. So
mhm,
monthly. Or the third would be the house itself. So
yeah,
I have to have a fenced in yard. It has to have a garage. I need an open floor plan. The walk-in closet is my number one priority. Anything pertaining to the house itself. If they had to pick one, what would it be? And it's interesting to hear their answer. Sometimes couples have two
oh
different.
yeah,
But the reason I ask, and it's not exactly a trick question, though all three things are deciding factors when it comes to
mhm,
buying a home. I ask because in order to get your number one priority, you may have to sacrifice a little bit in the other two
mhm,
categories. And the best example is, say you're moving to Manhattan, to
mhm,
get that zip code, you're going to sacrifice on square footage
on
and
size,
upgrades. You're
yep,
gonna have carpet where you want hardwood probably. You may not
mhm,
like your countertops, but you're going to have the amazing location. And so if
mhm.
I can extract that as best I can to help a client understand and prioritize, neighborhood and how much bang they can get for their buck in what area of DC, Maryland, or Virginia, then that sets the tone for the rest of the search.
What do you usually find that is like majority of what people answer? Is it location, the house, or the price?
It's usually location or the house itself. And sometimes,
That makes
after they
sense for that
answer.
area.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
But it's funny though, because sometimes they'll flip on me. I'll ask
Yep.
them more about, tell me more. What about location,
Mhm,
or what about the house itself? And once we start looking at homes, I start to gather maybe the house is more important than the location, if you're not
mhm.
liking what you're seeing
Yep.
in this neighborhood,
Well, and, like, once they start I mean, if there's someone who hasn't looked for a house in a while, or if they are first-time home buyers, like, they
Mhm.
might not really know what they want. Like, they might have an idea of
Right?
what they want, and then they start going through it, and they're like, "Well, actually, I'm okay with that location. I don't care about neighbors. I want space, and I
Mhm.
want the house to be what I want," and stuff like that. So, sometimes you have to pivot like Ross a
Right.
little bit.
And as their agent,
Um,
it's listening for that, but
mhm.
then also allowing them to arrive there on their own,
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's what gives them the confidence to make such a big decision.
Mhm. That's the last thing I ever wanna do is be like a pushy car salesman, because I feel like
Mhm.
whenever you hear real estate agent or recruiter or anything kind of in like the sales marketing-esque realm, I feel like immediately people will kind of get like, oh, I don't know, and get like a little
Icky,
cautious.
maybe.
Yeah. And I'm like,
Exactly.
no, I promise I'm not like that. Like, I
Yes,
promise.
I hate the reputation that real
Mm,
estate agents have, and unfortunately, I've met agents like that, and
yeah.
no, I'm not a salesperson. I see myself as a advisor, a
Mhm.
professional advisor. I'm helping clients make one of the biggest financial purchases they'll ever make, like you said, um, but I just happen to be in real estate.
Mhm.
And I am very comfortable discouraging more homes than I encourage if I think it's
Yeah.
going to be a bad investment or if I see major red flags at the showing. It's not my job at a showing, I believe, to point out the obvious as
Mhm.
much as I love selling sunset. You can see a hardwood and the finishes on your own. I'm looking for
Look
things
at
that are
this
gonna
view.
pop me. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's not my job, and I hear these horror stories of, the HVAC gave out or there was still
Mhm.
water at our inspection or, the foundation, the roof. I'm like, these are all things you could have seen at the first showing.
Mhm.
And all of it could have been prevented, had your agent known what to look for. And so that's our true job is
Mhm.
to protect our client even at our first showing, looking for those red flags. So yeah, I'm never trying to make the sale. I'm
Yeah.
trying to help a client make a really good investment.
Investment. Yep, yep. No, I completely agree. Um, so I know we're almost at time, and you probably have better things to do on a Monday night
It flew
than
by.
talk
That's amazing.
than talk with me. But I did have one final question that I always love to ask, especially I love to ask agents this. But what is the funniest thing that you've ever seen at a showing? Because we all have
Gosh,
that story.
I don't know if I would qualify this as funny or just, like, jaw-dropping. I did see a hot tub inside of a home, not
Huh.
like a jacuzzi bathtub. It was truly a massive hot like, 8 to 10 person hot tub inside the home, and, I mean, the whole room was just covered in mold, for
Oh,
imagine where all that moisture and steam where is it gonna go? Oh, it was just such a terrible decision. I'm like, "I don't know
oh my
how they're gonna sell
gosh.
this." But
Oh,
all I could
man.
do was laugh, like, because
Yeah.
I think some sellers are like, "This is a good idea," you know?
This is a
Let's
selling
do it.
point.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I have so many
Yikes.
questions off of that actually. Now that I'm like, how did they get that in there? Like, one, and then the other,
The
I don't know if
weight,
you saw, yeah, the
like,
weight of it, like,
understand.
was it in the
Yeah.
basement?
No. It
What?
was it was in a
Oh God.
sunroom, so there wasn't a floor underneath it, or
Uh-huh.
another livable floor underneath it, but I don't
Oh man.
if I recall, I looked under it because I'd never seen that before, and it didn't necessarily look reinforced as well as it probably should have been.
No. And then was there a picture in the listing of it, or was there no picture? When you, like, walked in and you're like, "Oh, didn't
No.
see that in listing."
See, that is a great question because, right, I why did we go see it in the first place? Sometimes you just have to see it for
Mm,
yourself,
mhm.
why Zillow Gone Wild is my favorite Instagram feed. It's like you just
Yep.
can't make it up. And
I
then lovingly, you do have clients who are like, "Let's just go," and you're like, "How
Mhm,
fun for me. I know
mhm.
you're not gonna buy it, but let's just go see it."
Sometimes
Like,
I love that though, because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, that's a new one I haven't seen before." So,
or it's good for the Instagram,
yep,
absolutely.
yep.
Good
It
for
reminds me
engagement.
of, I think, another broke agent one, but, like, they posted a picture of a, um, like a blow up hot tub in a
Mhm.
basement, but, like, they had literally put sand around it, like, and I'm like, "That takes a lot of effort to do that." And, like, all the water you have to bring down and, like, fill it up, I don't know. Too much
The
work for me,
longer, you're
but
right. I know. God, we can do a whole other podcast on the value of staging and
oh my
trusting
God.
your agent's advisement there. But
Hmm.
that another
That
time.
that's for another 40 minutes. So we'll
Yeah.
do that next time. Oh my gosh. Well, that went super duper quick. I feel like we have a lot more to talk about. So you will definitely have to come back on. But where can everyone find you? Instagram, Facebook, all of it.
Yes. Oh gosh, I should know my Facebook. Is it a handle on Facebook? I'm
I
such a
I
millennial.
think so. Well, I'll put it all in the show notes, so don't worry.
Yes, but Instagram, you can find me at Andy, Andy for Hit, and Hewitt, Hewitt, Andy H. Hewitt. So while I had an individual, real estate Instagram feed, I
Mhm.
decided to marry it with my personal because I think a good balance in content shows a bit
Yes.
of humanity. So you can find me there, Andy H. Hewitt on
I
Instagram.
I completely agree with you on that because I had a couple people be like, "Why don't you make a separate one?" And I'm like, "Well, if I'm your agent, you're going to be spending a lot of time with me. You need to
Mhm.
know kind of what you're getting into, like my humor. I have family, I have pets. I'm a little crazy, but
How
I promise
often I
I'm
eat
fun."
fried rice, like,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
need
Like
where
I
my
love my
priorities
stir fry and The Bachelor, like all of that.
right,
Um,
right.
no, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to be on my little podcast. But
Oh, thank you
um,
for having me. It was a
yeah,
good conversation. I could talk about this forever, so good to have
yeah.
an outlet.
Well, you're coming back on. We just have to figure out what day and time.
Sounds good.
But guys, thanks so much for making it through this episode. As always, if you like it, if you liked what we talked about, learned anything, like, subscribe, share, follow, all that good stuff. And stay tuned. I always have guests lined up, so there's more to come. But have a great night or day, whatever time it is for you. Bye.